My sister accidentally called me while my family was insulting me. They said I was dead weight and only came around for free food. My cousin mocked. She can't even cook. I laughed. Good thing I own the catering company. Their faces when they realized they'd just been blacklisted? Priceless. I wasn't supposed to hear that phone call. I had just gotten home after a long day, kicked off my shoes, and put on an oversized sweatshirt, the kind with sleeves that swallowed my hands. My plan for the night was simple: leftover pasta, a glass of wine, and an old crime documentary I'd probably fall asleep halfway through. My phone rang just as I was twirling spaghetti onto my fork. Wretch. I sighed. My older sister never called me just to chat. It was always about something: family gossip, holiday plans, or the occasional passive-aggressive comment disguised as concern. I put her on speaker and kept eating. But before I could say hello, I heard laughter. A lot of it. Not just Wretch's voice, but my cousin Lily's, my Aunt Susan's, a few others in the background. It sounded like a full-on family gathering. "Oh, come on," Lily was saying, between snorts of laughter. "We all know why she shows up. Free food. She's like a stray cat. Dead weight." My fork hit the plate. "Right," Wretch chimed in. "And she never brings anything. She can't even cook. I swear, if she wasn't family, I'd never invite her anywhere." Another voice added, probably my Aunt Susan. "She's an embarrassment." More laughter. The kind that people share when they're comfortable, when they think there's no one around to hear them except people who agree. My stomach twisted. My heart pounded. They were talking about me, and they had no idea I was listening. I stared at my phone, at Wretch's name glowing on the screen, like I could will it into making sense. I wanted to hang up. I should have hung up, but I didn't. I let them keep talking. "She just drifts through life," Wretch said, in that condescending tone she always used when talking about me. "She's almost 30 and still living in that tiny apartment. No husband, no kids, no real job. Mom and Dad never say it out loud, but they're embarrassed." Aunt Susan let out a dramatic sigh. "She should be grateful we even invite her to things. Lord knows she doesn't contribute. At least when you have her over, you know she won't show up with some gross homemade dish." Lily giggled. "Oh my God, imagine her cooking." "I'd rather eat cardboard," Wretch said. And they all laughed again, like it was hilarious, like I was some joke, like I wasn't sitting in my apartment, hearing every single word. I muted myself and just listened. Not because I was too shocked to speak, but because I was waiting for someone to defend me. For Mom, for Dad, for my brother Matt, anyone. But no one did, because they all agreed. That's when it hit me. They thought I was nothing. And the funniest part? They had no idea who they were talking about. They had no idea that the sister, daughter, niece, and cousin they were mocking owned one of the most successful catering companies in the city. They had no idea that the deadweight they pitted was making more money than Wretch and Lily combined. They had no idea that the girl they thought was a failure had built something from the ground up, without a degree, without connections, without their approval. And now? Now they weren't just going to find out. They were going to feel it. I waited. I didn't call Wretch back that night. I didn't say a word. I let them sit in their ignorance, laughing at a version of me that didn't exist. Because I knew something they didn't. Every year, Wretch hosted a massive family Christmas party. And every year, she hired a catering company for it. A catering company that, this year, was about to mysteriously decline her booking. She just didn't know it yet. A week later, Wretch called me again. "Hey, so I know you're probably busy," she said, her voice fake sweet. "But I was wondering if you could recommend a good caterer for the Christmas party?" I smirked. "Oh, this was too easy. Actually," I said, keeping my voice casual, "I own a catering company. We do high-end events. I could send you a menu." Dead silence. Then, a nervous laugh. "Wait, what? Since when?" "For a while now." More silence. "Oh, well, okay, sure. Send over the menu." I sent it immediately. What I didn't tell her: my company had a strict policy: no business with disrespectful clients. And 2 days before the event, after she had told everyone that the food was going to be amazing, I declined her booking. Wretch lost it. "You can't just back out. The party is in 2 days." "Oh, I'm not backing out," I said sweetly. "I'm just enforcing company policy." "Company policy? What the HLL are you talking about?" I took a deep breath and let it all out. "I heard your little conversation last week," I said. "You know, the one where you all called me dead weight? The one where you laughed about how I can't even cook? The one where you said I was an embarrassment?" Silence. Wretch's voice was tight. You heard that?" "Yeah," I said. "I did. We didn't mean it, okay? We were just joking." "Oh, so it was a joke?" I said. "Well, I'm sure you'll have plenty of fun joking about it over whatever frozen food you managed to find last minute." Then I hung up. The Christmas party? A complete disaster. They couldn't find a caterer in time, so they ended up with some sad-looking grocery store trays. Cold ham, stale rolls, weird mayonnaise-based salads. Wretch avoided me the whole night. But my favorite moment? When Lily took a bite of the turkey, grimaced, and muttered, "God, this food SCKs." I leaned in, smiling sweetly. "Good thing I own the best catering company in town," I whispered. Too bad you guys are blacklisted. The look on her face? Absolutely. Priceless. And that, dear reader, is how I went from being dead weight to the one person they wished they hadn't insulted. Wretch didn't speak to me for a full week after the disaster of a Christmas party. No calls, no texts, just complete radio silence. But I knew my sister. She wasn't the type to let something go, especially not when it made her look bad. And sure enough, on New Year's Eve, my phone rang. Wretch. I stared at the screen, debating whether to pick up. I already knew what this was about, damage control. But I wasn't in the mood for her fake apologies. The phone buzzed again. Fine. Let's see what she had to say. I answered with a calm, hello? Wretch didn't waste time. You really embarrassed me. I let out a short laugh. I embarrassed you? Yes, she snapped. You knew how important that party was. You could have just told me you owned the company from the start. You didn't have to be so what, Wretch? I cut in. Petty? Because that's rich, coming from you. You S-bottaged me. That actually made me laugh. No, Wretch. You S-bottaged yourself. A beat of silence. Then, a dramatic sigh. Look, let's just move past this, okay? It's a new year. We're family. I rolled my eyes. There it was. Wretch's favorite tactic. Pretend nothing happened and guilt me into compliance. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. Family. I repeated. You mean the same family that called me dead weight? The one that laughed about how I can't cook? Wretch groaned. Oh my God, are you really still stuck on that? We were just joking, right? A joke, I said flatly. Funny how those jokes only ever seem to be at my expense. You're being so sensitive. There it was. The classic dismissal. The gaslighting. The same bullcrap I'd put up with my entire life. And suddenly, I was done. Completely, fully done. You know what, Wretch? I said, my voice ice cold. You're right. Let's move on. In fact, let's take it a step further. She hesitated. What do you mean? I mean, I'm done pretending we're close. I'm done showing up to events just to be mocked behind my back. I'm done acting like I owe you or anyone else a damn thing. Her voice rose. Oh, don't be dramatic. I smiled. I'm not. I'm just finally listening. Listening to what? To what you all have been saying about me for years. Wretch made a noise of frustration. This is ridiculous. Are you seriously cutting off your own family over a misunderstanding? I shrugged, even though she couldn't see me. Call it whatever you want. You'll regret this. That made me laugh again, an actual, genuine laugh. Oh, Wretch. I think the only people regretting anything right now are you guys. Then I hung up. And this time, I didn't feel even a little bit bad about it. The fallout was fast and BR towel. Wretch wasted no time painting me as the villain. She's so ungrateful, she whined to my parents. I tried to make peace, and she just cut me off. Aunt Susan was no better. You know how she is. Always looking for a reason to play the victim. And my mom? Well, Mom just sighed and said, you know how dramatic she can be. Like I was the problem. Like I had imagined the whole thing. Like it wasn't their words that led to this. But you know what the best part was? It didn't matter anymore. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't care. Let me know if you want more. There's still plenty left to unpack. Wretch's little smear campaign spread through the family fast. Within days, my phone was blowing up with messages from relatives, some pretending to be neutral, others outright demanding I apologize. My Aunt Susan sent a long-winded text about how family is forever and that I was being immature. My cousin Lily, the same one who called me a stray cat, had the audacity to text, wow, you're really gonna throw away decades of family over a joke? Grow up. Even my mom called, her voice carrying that same tired disappointment I'd heard my whole life. You're taking this too far, she said. Wretch feels awful. She didn't mean it. I leaned against my kitchen counter, staring at the city lights outside my apartment window, phone pressed to my ear. She feels awful? I asked, my voice deceptively light. That's interesting, because last time I checked, the only thing she felt awful about was being caught. Mom sighed. Honey, she's your sister. She's always looked out for you. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Has she? She's just frustrated. You know how she is. She says things without thinking. Yeah, I said. And I'm done excusing it. A pause. Then, the guilt trip. Sweetheart, you know your father, and I won't be around forever. You don't want to have regrets, do you? There it was. The final card she always played. Like I was supposed to just swallow the years of passive-aggressive jabs, the condescending looks, the whispered insults behind my back, because one day they'd be gone. But I wasn't that little girl anymore. And I refused to be guilted into tolerating people who didn't even respect me. Mom, I said, my voice softer now. I love you. I really do. But I need you to hear me when I say this. A pause. I am done being the family's punching bag. Silence. Then, she sighed. I just don't want you to be alone. I smiled a little. Not because it was funny, but because for the first time, I realized she didn't know me at all. Mom, I said gently. I'm not alone. And this time, I meant it. The next couple of weeks were blissfully quiet. No calls. No texts. No backhanded comments disguised as concern. For the first time in my life, I wasn't forcing myself to show up to family dinners, plastering on a smile while they whispered about me the second I left the room. And you know what? I was happier for it. My business was thriving. I was booking more high-end clients than ever, expanding my team, even considering opening a second location. For the first time, I felt like I could actually breathe. Until one day, I got a call from an unknown number. I normally don't answer those, but something told me to pick up. Hello. A hesitant voice came through. Hey, it's Matt. I blinked. My brother? I hadn't heard from Matt in months. Unlike Wretch, he was the type to stay out of family drama, keeping to himself and avoiding conflicts at all costs. Hey, I said cautiously. Didn't expect to hear from you. A pause. Then, in a quieter voice, yeah, I heard what happened. I exhaled slowly, bracing myself. And another pause. Then, with an awkward chuckle, he admitted, I think you were right to cut them off. That stunned me into silence. Of all the people in the family, Matt was the last one I expected to take my side. You do? I asked, suspicious. Yeah, he sighed. Look, I'm not going to pretend I was some perfect sibling. I know I should have spoken up more when Wretch treated you like crap, but I guess I just didn't want to get involved. I swallowed, not sure how to respond. Matt had never been cruel to me, but he'd also never defended me. He was always just there, quiet, neutral. You should have, I said finally. But I appreciate you saying that now. A beat of silence. Then, hesitantly, he asked, You want to grab lunch sometime? And despite everything, despite the years of feeling like an outsider in my own family, I realized I wasn't as alone as I thought. I met Matt for lunch that weekend at a small cafe downtown. Nothing fancy, just a quiet little place where the coffee was strong and the sandwiches were good. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting by the window, drumming his fingers on the table. I almost laughed. He looked nervous. Hey, I said, sliding into the chair across from him. He looked up, startled, like he hadn't expected me to actually show up. Oh, hey. We sat there in awkward silence for a second, neither of us sure where to start. Finally, he cleared his throat. So, how's work? I smirked. You mean my imaginary, non-existent job? Matt winced. Yeah, about that. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Tell me the truth. Did you know? His fingers tapped against his coffee cup. About the catering business? Yeah. He sighed. Not at first. But, I figured it out a while ago. I just didn't say anything. I stared at him. Why? I don't know, he admitted, looking uncomfortable. I guess. Part of me thought you didn't want them to know. And honestly, I didn't want to be in the middle of it. I studied him for a second. Unlike Wretch, Matt had never been outright cruel to me. He never mocked me, never talked down to me. But he had also never defended me. Never stepped in when Wretch and the others took their jabs. And in some ways, that had hurt just as much. You should have told me, I said finally. That you knew. He nodded, looking down at his plate. Yeah, I should have. A heavy silence settled between us. Then, hesitantly, he said, Mom and Dad are really upset. I let out a dry laugh. Are they? Matt gave me a look. You know they are. Mom keeps saying she doesn't understand why you're throwing the family away. I scoffed. Right. Because I'm the one who threw them away. I know. That made me pause. You do? Matt exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I love them, but you're right. They've never treated you fairly. And when I heard what Wretch said, he shook his head. I don't blame you for cutting them off. For the first time in weeks, something in my chest loosened. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. Someone else saw it, felt it, understood it. So where does that leave you? I asked, raising an eyebrow. You planning to take Wretch's side, or mine? Matt let out a dry chuckle. You think I want to be in the middle of this mess? I gave him a pointed look. You kinda already are. He sighed, then shrugged. I'm not picking sides. I don't think what they did was okay. And I wanted you to know that. That was probably the closest thing to an apology I was ever going to get from Matt. And you know what? It was enough. For now. But Wretch? Wretch was far from done. She had humiliated herself at the Christmas party. She had been exposed as a two-faced, condescending BLLY. And if there was one thing Wretch hated, it was looking bad. Which meant she wasn't just going to let it go. No, Wretch was going to fight back. And she was going to make it personal. It started small. A few snide comments in the family group chat, little passive-aggressive digs that I ignored. Then, a few weeks later, I found out she had started spreading rumors. She told people I hadn't actually built my business from the ground up, that I had stolen recipes from a former employer, that my company was failing and I was just putting on a front to seem successful. She even told Mom and Dad that I was making up the whole Blacklist thing, claiming I had lied just to ruin her Christmas party. But the worst part? She started reaching out to my clients. I found out when my assistant, Tasha, came into my office one morning looking furious. You're not going to believe this, she said, slamming her phone onto my desk. I glanced at the screen. It was an email from one of our biggest corporate clients. Hey, just wanted to check in. Someone reached out claiming there were some issues with your business. Said we might want to reconsider working with you. Just wanted to give you a heads up. My stomach dropped. Who? I asked, voice tight. Tasha folded her arms. They wouldn't say, but I did some digging. And guess what? I didn't even need to guess. I already knew. Wretch. That vindictive little snake was trying to esbotage me. She was trying to hurt my business, my livelihood, the one thing I had built without her, without my family, without anyone's help. And that was the last straw. Because if Wretch wanted a war, she was about to get one. Wretch had always underestimated me. She thought I was weak, passive, someone she could mock, manipulate, and dismiss without consequence. But the second she came for my business, the thing I had built from the ground up with my own blood, sweat, and tears, she made a critical mistake. Because I wasn't the same girl who used to let things slide. And if Wretch wanted to play dirty, I was about to outclass her at her own game. The first thing I did was gather evidence. Tasha, my assistant, was already on top of it. She'd compiled screenshots of emails, texts from clients who'd been approached, even voice messages where Wretch had not so subtly implied my business was unstable. Next, I contacted my lawyer, Jordan. He was an old friend, sharp, ruthless when necessary, and extremely good at what he did. After I explained the situation, he let out a low whistle. She's actually trying to defame your company? Yep. He clicked his pen against his desk, thinking, all right, we've got a few options. Cease and desist. Defamation lawsuit. Or, if you'd rather keep things clean, I can draft a very strongly worded warning that'll scare the HLL out of her. I smirked. Let's start with the warning. Good call. Jordan cracked his knuckles. Let's see how she reacts when she realizes she just messed with the wrong sister. Wretch got the letter 2 days later. And oh, did she react? She called me within minutes of receiving it, her voice practically shrieking through the phone. Are you serious? She screeched. You got a lawyer involved? I sipped my coffee. Yep. You can't be serious. Dead serious. This is insane. I didn't even do anything wrong. I let out a slow breath, keeping my tone even. So, just to clarify, lying to my clients, spreading false rumors, and actively trying to damage my business doesn't count as doing something wrong in your book. Silence. Then, a week, it was just business. I actually laughed. Oh, Wretch. If you really believe that, you wouldn't be panicking right now. Her voice dropped into that fake reasonable tone she always used when she was trying to worm her way out of trouble. Look, I may have overstepped, but we're family. You don't really want to take legal action against your own sister, do you? I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. Depends. Wretch hesitated. On whether or not you're done. Another pause. Then, through gritted teeth, she muttered, fine. Fine what? I'll stop. Good, I said cheerfully. Because if you ever try to screw with me again, the next letter you get won't be a warning. It'll be a lawsuit. More silence. Then, finally, she hung up. Checkmate. Wretch never directly messed with me again after that. But I wasn't done. Because if she thought she was just going to walk away without consequences, she had another thing coming. See, Wretch had spent years treating me like I was nothing. Like I was some pathetic freeloader who contributed nothing to the family. And I decided it was time for her to really understand what it felt like to be on the outside. So I did something I knew would hit her where it hurt. I stopped showing up. No more family dinners. No more birthday parties. No more events where she got to put on her perfect big sister act while still talking down to me behind my back. At first, Wretch didn't care. But then she started to realize something. Without me, things weren't the same. Because, despite everything, I had always been the connector in the family. The one who made an effort to check in on relatives, bring little gifts to gatherings, remember everyone's birthdays. And without me, the family started to fracture. Matt, who had always been on the fence, started pulling away too. He and I were closer now than we'd ever been, and he no longer felt obligated to show up to every family function just to keep the peace. Even Mom and Dad, who had always taken Wretch's side, started noticing the shift. It wasn't long before they started calling me, asking why I wasn't coming around anymore. And for the first time in my life, I told them the truth. I told them everything. At first, they tried to defend Wretch. But the more I talked, the more I laid it all out. Years of mistreatment, dismissal, condescension, the quieter they got. By the end of the call, Mom's voice was small. I didn't realize it was that bad. Dad, normally silent during these conversations, finally spoke. I guess we failed you in ways we didn't see. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was something. And more importantly, they finally saw Wretch for who she was. Wretch, of course, hated this. She hated that I wasn't coming around. She hated that Matt had distanced himself too. She hated that, for the first time ever, she wasn't in control of the family narrative. So, one day, I got one last text from her. I don't get why you're acting like this. It's pathetic. You're cutting yourself off from your own family over nothing. Enjoy being alone. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I smiled. And I replied, oh, Wretch, I'm not alone. I just finally stopped surrounding myself with people who make me feel like I am. And then, I blocked her. For good. And just like that, I was finally free. free from the toxicity, free from the guilt, free from a family dynamic that had weighed me down for far too long. And as I sat in my thriving business, surrounded by a team that respected me, a real support system, and a life I had built on my own terms, I realized something. The best revenge wasn't ruining Reg's life. It was simply living mine and doing it better than she ever imagined I could.